Live from the nation's capital, BizNet and ESPN present Nation's Business Today for Thursday, July 16th, 1987.
Warren, the market bounced around like a balloon full of buttermilk yesterday. The boogeyman that popped out of the box just as the trading was about to begin was the trade deficit figure for the month of May. What Wall Street was expecting was about $11 billion, less than the month of April. And so that was factored into investors' positions the day before, driving almost all the indexes to record highs. But what Wall Street got was $14.4 billion, more than $1 billion higher than April, perhaps setting the stage for yet another all-time record annual trade deficit when all the figures are in after the end of the year. Dr. Truss's research and controversial treatment has not been widely known by physicians or patients, nor, as one might expect, is it regarded as good medicine by his critics.
When this is being prescribed for patients who have rather vague complaints, who are not extremely ill, who do not have any demonstrable suppression of their immune function, and whose chief complaints may be fatigue or not feeling up to par, there is no conclusive evidence that it's beneficial in that kind of setting.
Part of the reason for such skepticism is proof was in the pudding. That is to say, if your problems disappeared after treatment, then obviously you had too much yeast. Traditional doctors prefer proof before diagnosis and treatment.
Coming next, Bruce Page with the Investors Report.
Warren, something like Kenny Rogers used to say, you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. And investors who play the Wall Street game most vigorously make a lot of their decisions on projections. And with so much talk on the street about trade deficit figures for the latest reported month, sure to be much less than the previous month, holding them, that is their stock purchases, made the most sense. But when that street talk proved invalid, the trade deficit figure more than $3 billion higher than expected, folding them was the only way to go. Blue chips took the tumble the hardest, the Dow falling 15 points in early trading, but it wasn't long before investors took the news all in stride, driving the Dow right back up again, very near the 2,500 level briefly, before falling back to close at 2483.74. Good evening. The feud within OPEC continues apace, but it appears as if a cut of about $4 a barrel from the cartel's current $34 will result after a stormy meeting in London. At least that's the message from OPEC's dominant country, Saudi Arabia. We'll have more news after this.
Merrill Lynch, a breed apart.
It was a big day on Wall Street, but a bad day for the precious metals. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained a healthy 12.86 amid falling interest rates. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange was moderately heavy at just over 84 million shares. The fear of falling oil prices forced gold and silver down today. Gold plunged more than $40 on most U.S. markets to settle just above the $400 mark. Silver dropped $1.50 to $10.25. This has been a financial news break, and I'm Bruce Page reporting. It's as if Congress never considered that anybody other than an American would apply for a subsidy, for there's nothing in the law saying it excludes anybody else. The choice of words, then, is critical. So why does what our lawmakers write up lead to tens of millions of dollars over the years being paid to foreigners, provide incentives for still more of them to buy up American farmland? Critics would argue that what our legislators need is a crash course in wisdom before they transform ideas into law. Just look at the market through the eyes of an auto parts supplier. Tens of millions of cars, all eventually needing repair. Annually, more than $130 billion worth to legitimate businesses. Even to illegitimate businesses, $3 billion a year, Detroit says, money not going in the right pocket. Most popular profitable items for counterfeiters are substandard brake linings, lighting parts, antifreeze, transmission fluid, and sheet metal. Many critics blame the popularity of the discount items on the automotive parts industry itself, arguing prices for the real products are too high and manufacturers of them too greedy for profit. So how can you expect the consumer to do anything but bite the bait when offered a deal? Spokesmen for the industry, however, say people should be more concerned about the risk of danger rather than price, no matter how good the deal. A very noticeable change awaits senators and members of Congress as they journey back to the nation's capital. Cherry blossoms in full bloom. There are two great guessing games in this town. One, when will the buds finally pop? The answer to that one is the hotter it gets, the sooner they come. And 80-degree temperatures lately did it early this year. The second great guessing game going on here these days, when will the Reagan administration and Congress compromise on next year's federal budget deficit? Much like sun rays focused on cherry buds, Graham Rubman Hollings is putting on the heat as never before. Partnership is inevitable. As one person put it, Graham Rubman is a kind of mutual assured destruction theory of fiscal policy. By creating a crisis that affects people of all political persuasions in both Congress and in the White House, it assures they will all ultimately get together, make sacrifices, and come up with a joint program. Everybody would prefer that that would happen sooner rather than later, but like cherry buds, it would seem progress depends upon how much heat is applied and how soon. Bruce Page, CBN News in Washington. The Treasury Department, which oversees the IRS, was opposed to amnesty a year ago, but has recently gone on record as restudying the idea with an open mind. Chances are the Treasury will take its cue from the Senate, facing a test vote soon. Few political observers doubt Congress or the Senate will vote down an alternative as promising as tax amnesty to make up for Graham Rubman. In terms of implementation, don't expect it to begin before at least the end of this year. The Saga deal saw Marriott sell off the less profitable restaurant divisions of the company it acquired, making the fit all the more attractive to Wall Street. The Marriott Corporation has come a long way from its humble beginnings as a root beer stand back in 1927 to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise today, doubling in size and profit every 5 years. For the Corporate Report, I'm Bruce Page, Nation's Business Today. Some Canadian businessmen complain that the Russians are extremely hard to deal with, to the point where some say it's not worth the bother. Why? Primarily because everything here is part of government bureaucracy that is highly compartmentalized.
After all, the Soviet Union is a socialist state, controlled from the top.
Problems created by our monetary system plagued our ancestors as much as ourselves. What frustrated our pre-revolutionary relatives more than 200 years ago was the shortage of coins in colonial America. Coins were preferred because, measured by weight, their value could always be determined. Think about it. With few coins, it would be very difficult to do business, and it was. But Congress did create paper money as well as coin money. Now take a close look at your dollar bills, and you might be surprised to read they're actually Federal Reserve notes, which up until a few years ago you could have traded in for something of equal value at this ominous-looking building, the Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of the United States. Now check the fine print. Does it say anything today about being redeemable? Where you'll notice it first is in your W-4. You know, that form that you file with your employer every year on how much tax to withhold from your salary. Got to file a new one this year, and this is your worksheet. And simple is not what you'd have to say about it, even if genius is your IQ level. We asked the man who wrote the book on taxpayer withholding for his assessment.
Frankly, I think it's easier for me to do my tax return than it is to do this W-4. At least when you're doing a tax return, you have all the instructions and all the tables right there.
Now, maybe this is what you had in mind, courtesy of the IRS. But let's get real here. When was the last time you can ever remember the revenuers being so generous? Chances are we're really talking itty-bitty when you get right down to the nitty-gritty. If we didn't get a lot of money, did we get what President Reagan told us he wanted in a State of the Union address?
Let us move together with an historic reform of tax simplification for fairness and growth.
Fact is, Ed is insured $100,000 through his employer. Sounds like a bundle, but enough so the family wouldn't have to be uprooted, fall in upon hard times. It wouldn't even pay off the mortgage, let alone buy food, clothes, and all the other budget needs month after month, year after year. Before you say those cheap rates for life insurance sound like your ideal solution too, be warned, what is right for the McDonald's may be wrong for you. Term insurance rates skyrocket as you approach retirement, becoming far too expensive for most people to afford thereafter. Most life insurance professionals advise converting to whole life policies between the ages of 30 to 50. What that means is high-profit luxury goods are going fast, much faster than last year. furs and jewelry, cashmere and crystal, appliances and furniture. And what's hot at the lower end of the scale for under $25?
Every Christmas season, there's one item that seems so offbeat, you know, like the pet rock with instructions on how to teach it to roll over, play dead, that sort of thing. Well, this year, there's the Executive Yuppie Beeper, designed to make you feel important or get you out of any social situation you want to avoid. Just flip a switch, and 20 seconds later, you've got an excuse to dash off. Excuse me, won't you? One large grocery chain, for example, faced tremendous pressure from the UFW over a period of 5 years. That chain elected to lay out displays of Red Coach lettuce alongside other brands with information about the issues as both the UFW and growers see them, leaving the freedom of choice of product to the consumer. Many Americans every year receive unexpected bonuses from employers, inheritances, lotteries, raffles, or even bingo games. Let's say $12,000 were to come your way today, allowing $1,000 for mom's new sofa, another $1,000 for dad's new stereo. What could you do with the remaining $10,000 to make it grow? Here's one answer in a pilot format we put together 4 years ago. So you want maximum security, maximum return, and freedom to get your cash out anytime without major penalty. Then consider money market mutual funds. They buy money market instruments. While that may sound awfully highfalutin and foreign to your ear, you've actually been dealing in money market instruments ever since you opened your first lemonade stand. Those dollar bills you earned were Federal Reserve notes, IOUs, if you will, from the U.S. government. The money market deals in very high-quality IOUs, such as bank certificates of deposit, the $100,000 and up kind, commercial paper, which are corporate IOUs, and U.S. Treasury bonds. They're some of the safest investments you can buy, but you have to have a very fat wallet to buy them. Most people don't have a wad wide enough, but take a lot of people, create a mutual fund, and you've suddenly got big money to invest and therefore bargaining power for a high yield of interest as a return. Reputable money market mutual funds are safe as any bank anyway, and unlike the old mutual funds, there's no sales commission to pay. You can buy in for as little as $500, but one of their best features is their liquidity. That means at any time during the 30, 60, 90-day term, you can write checks on your fund at any time for any or all of your investment. Your interest will accrue right up to the day of withdrawal. When the term is over, you've got your $10,000 back, and over a year's time, you've earned $1,300 or more, assuming the average 13% rate of interest. Put that interest back into the kitty each year, too, and over 10 years, at that rate, your nest egg, without accounting for inflation or taxes, will equal $33,945.69. Over 20 years, are you ready for this? $115,230.89. Now that's a pot of gold. Coming up next, Executive Profile. Have you ever wondered how successful people got that way? A lot of viewers do. And in Southern California's Orange County, I produced a half-hour weekly series about well-known people who'd made their mark in the business community. I'm confident the same program concept could find both willing advertisers and an abundance of interested viewers in your market. Even if you were still a kid around a summer campfire waiting for the next storyteller to spin his yarn, it's doubtful you'd hear any more thrilling story than the life and times of Cappy Dobbs, now well known in Orange County as a multi-million-dollar land developer. Thrilling because just 20 years ago, he and his bride, along with their belongings containing a cardboard box, hopped aboard a Greyhound bus in Oklahoma and headed west. Cappy, when you got off that bus, you had teaching credentials. Is that how you started your colorful California career?
That was the reason that we were comfortable coming to California. We at least had a job when we got here. And yes, I did teach for 1 year. That was the first job that I had in California, and I managed to stay in that profession for a year.
How did you get out of it and move on?
I had planned really to get out of it. It was not a long-term career. That was the education that I had. I felt was a good background, but marketing was my strong field, and I moved into the marketing world and started selling. Basically, the sales background that I had early and the contacts that I made and the way I used those contacts and the people that I met is really what moved me into the development world.
How can a guy come up from nothing, so to speak, right up from the bootstraps and be as successful as you have?